So it hurts even more, right?
Yes. 21 years to be exact.
But you're going to a beautiful place. Anywhere in Mexico is a beautiful place.
Amen.
So where are you going?
Cozumel.
It's even more beautiful. When you said island, I said she's
Yes, the
going to
island.
Cozumel, right?
Yeah, island of
Well,
Cozumel.
I go to Mexico every summer.
Oh, good.
And I go to Mexico on a mission trip.
Yes.
So when we're there in Mexico on the mission trip, I hope that you can come.
Amen.
Because every year we get to do 2 roofs for local congregations. We're still debating whether we're going to go this summer, not because we can't go to Mexico, but whether we're going to have to go through a 14-day quarantine when we get back. But we're monitoring the whole situation, and we'll see if it's going to happen. But it's just a beautiful thing to have built relationships in the Yucatan, in the Quintana Roo.
Yeah, that's my state.
That's your state.
Yes,
She even
Quintana
says it.
Roo.
That's my state already. And over 20-some years that we've been going there.
Amen.
And so we're praying that things will work out. We'll be able to take a group over there. And maybe Brother Tony, one of these days, if you're serious about our sister leaving us, leaving you here with a trio, that you guys can come together. We can go over there, do some mission work, and spend 10 days.
Sounds like I'd like to go.
Okay? And
We would like to.
and I'll even get you to preach over there in some of the churches. And
Translate for me.
I will. I'm one of the translators, so
All right.
we'll do it.
Why
So this morning I was going to talk to you about surviving digital Babylon. And then I started thinking, after Thursday, I think it was Thursday when the president declared a national emergency, I said, I think we can talk about digital Babylon at any other time. And so I thought about what could I share with you this morning as we go through this pandemic, right?
Yes.
And I know the doctor here, and if you do, I think you're a nurse practitioner, so you know this very well. Pandemic is because of how it spreads, correct? Okay, so that's why it's pandemic, because of how it's spreading all over and how fast it spreads. But we've had worse things than this pandemic, which is called our regular flu, right?
Yes.
So some people say, oh, well, so it's going to go away. Oh, so this, right? So they play it down, they minimize it, even our president is shaking hands. So what we have to do is we have to be careful that we don't minimize things. Okay? That's the first thing. There is a sense of responsibility that comes with being a Christian. We don't minimize things that can affect our health or anybody's health. So we don't just pray for God to take care of his children. And when we say that, we often mean just the believers. When we don't remember that God happens to have, 7 billion children?
Yes.
Okay? So we have to be mindful of that. Okay? We all belong to the web of humanity. We all belong to the family of God. Every single person was created in the image and likeness of God. Okay? So, because I want to be responsible, right, I carry mine. Right? And I think our doctor here, our nurse, she's getting her paper rub there, and she carries with her, which is the medication that solves all the problems, right? So all you gotta do is just, There she is. You probably won't need her in Mexico right now. Mexicans have not been banned from coming in unless they go other ways, right, in their own way. So I think it's important that we, of all people, should be the most cautious. And of all people, we should be the most responsible. We should model to people how we can live in the midst of a pandemic with this coronavirus that is affecting the whole world. We shouldn't say it has nothing to do with me. We have to be very careful, even though I've heard it this morning. Oh, this has to do with the last day, with the plagues and this and that. We have to be careful with that. We have to be careful. Because there have been worse things that have happened. And viruses and plagues have been part of our reality as human beings since Adam and Eve decided to say to God, we can live life without you. So we have to learn how to frame our faith in the midst of crisis. Now I want to say we have to be careful that we don't get distracted. And it can be very easily done. It can very easily be done. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine. He says, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, man. I said, what do you mean? Yeah, because they closed my church down. I'm saying, you don't know what to do. You're so dependent on the church that you need your church fixed. That's what I mean by that, right? You picked it up real quick. So we have to learn, we have to frame, we have to be very careful. So this morning, I want to share a few things, what I call, you know, people talk about my mission in life, right? My mission in life, and what is your mission in life? So what I want to share with you and then frame it to see what we can learn is, for what we're facing right now, is to say that we need to learn to have a life in mission. Not just that I have a mission. You see the difference? One thing is to be able to talk, oh, this is my mission. But what we have to talk about is a life in mission. Some people say that they have a limited mission in life. You know, they're able to accomplish this, they're able to accomplish that. But we have a different experience. Our experience is to have a life in mission. And I want to give you 4 things that people who live a life in mission have. The first thing that they do is the 4 C's, okay? Very easy to remember. First of all, people with life in mission have a sense of calling. They're called. And they're not called to be a Seventh-day Adventist. They're called, period. They're not called to do something. They're called to be someone. Very different. People who have a sense of calling have this awareness that they belong to God because, another way of saying it, Jesus said, I have chosen you. So in this idea of being called, you have a sense that God has chosen you, and it's not something exclusive, but this sense that God says, you're mine and I am yours. And there is an intimate relationship with God. So people who have a life in mission, life in mission are those people that have a sense of calling. Some people say that my job is my calling. Oh, that's a very consumer-oriented kind of thing. Your job is not your calling. Do you know that even after many years I haven't been a pastor, I realized that pastoring isn't my calling either. that God called me as a person. God called me. It's very different. So people who are life in mission are people who have a sense of calling on their lives, on who they are, and their identity is connected not to what they do, but their identity are connected to who they are with God. They have a sense of calling. Second thing, there are people who live a life in mission. They're compassionate. You're called and you're compassionate. Jesus had spent many days healing and preaching and teaching, and the crowd kept getting bigger, and he suddenly realized the crowd that he had in front of him. He said that Luke says that he was moved to compassion. He saw the people as sheep without a shepherd, and he was moved to compassion. The word compassion in the original Greek has to do with your internal organs. So what Jesus was feeling, he was feeling something inside of him. You see, it moved him. Luke is saying something happened in the womb of Jesus, referring to the womb of God in the Old Testament. Our internal organs is a way of saying where we have our deepest emotions, our love for people, even our hate and indifference to people. That's where they reside. And Jesus was saying, I am feeling inside all this compassion that my Father has ever felt for human beings. Compassion always leads you to action.
Amen.
Amen.
Compassion is never a discussion. Compassion always leads you to action. You cannot, when you experience compassion for other people, you cannot be indifferent. You have to work very hard that when that movement of your internal being is awakened, and when you're fully aware of your feelings, what is happening with what you're seeing, you have to act. You have to act. And that's what people, the life in mission, experience and do. They're compassionate. They're moved to compassion. In our situation right now, what we need to express is compassion in action. Of all people, what comes out of our mouth should be words of compassion.
Amen.
What comes out of our mouth should be words of healing.
Amen.
What comes out of our mouth should be words of hope.
Amen.
What comes out of our mouth should be words of encouragement. What comes out of our mouth should be words of affirmation, should be words of understanding, should be words of love and peace for those that are hurting. You've heard very well that the pandemic of fear is worse than the coronavirus. And some of us are still caught up in the pandemic of the coronavirus as Christians. When we can take this opportunity to take all the precautions and create a place of safety for the people that are surrounding us. We can model faith. We can model hope. We can model love.
Amen.
We can model compassion. We can model encouragement. We can say, everything will be okay. Let's just do the right thing. So life in mission Those people who see themselves in a mission are called, they're compassionate. Another thing is they're committed. They're committed. They're committed with their resources. They're committed with their time. They're committed with their passion. They're committed to the mission that they sense that they have in life. These people don't fool around. They don't get distracted. They don't get distracted by the worst things that happen around them. Because they're committed. They're focused. It's very easy for us to begin to get distracted in trying to explain to people what is happening. That's distraction. And we can go to the right or we can go to the left. But committed people are very focused. This is what God has called me to be. I am here and I am going to be a source of hope. I am going to be either a source of grace or a source of disgrace. I am going to be a source of encouragement, or I am going to be a source of discouragement. Or I am going to provide hopefulness or hopelessness. It's going to be either of those two things if we get distracted. We're going to be that, your friend, right? That friend that, where his popularity is more important. So he has really worked on that little speech, right? Because you had memorized it yourself. You said, you say the same thing all the time. And when people start holding the conversation about this COVID-19, we can just join in the conversation. Oh yeah. We can be among those that are running to Costco and running to Walmart and running to Sam's to get our toilet paper.
There is nothing left.
We can be those kinds of people, or we can be responsible people. We can be loving people. Why is it that people, I guess it only happens here in America because we are a country of abundance, okay? That people pile up these huge, bigger Walmart, not Walmart, but Sam's and Costco carts, right? They are shopping carts that are a little bigger. People just load up as if they're the only ones, right? As if you're the only one that needs toilet paper. Be careful that we don't get dragged into that kind of behavior. We need to be committed to the mission. What mission? What God has called you to be. A compassionate human being. It's someone that can say, you know what? I want to ask my neighbor, is there something that they need? So that I can give of myself to them. They're committed. This idea that this virus may be new, so therefore we're suffering, poor little human beings, we're suffering, it's not new. Suffering has been part and is part of human existence. And God hasn't promised us to deliver us from the pestilences. God hasn't promised to deliver us from coronavirus. That's not what Psalms 91 is saying. In a very poetic way, what the psalmist is saying, no matter what comes your way, I'm there with you.
Amen.
He has promised to be with Suffering is part of our existence. And we have to learn how to live with suffering and death. We have to learn how to cope and grieve wholeheartedly and experience the loss of a dear one. We have to deal with issues that we human beings have to suffer through. Paul put it this way. He says, this is the same scripture reading that we read this morning, but this is from the New International Version. And I like what the King James Version says, in pearls, right? In pearls. But this is what the NIV says. I have been constantly on the move. Probably today, Paul would have been told by the General Conference, limit your travel. Don't travel internationally. Don't go to Spain. Don't think that you can just go all over the place. Just stay cool. Stay calm. But in this case, he's saying, I have been constantly on the move. And look, in this movement that he was part of, constantly, this is what has been happening to him. I have been in danger from rivers. In the King James says, I have been in perils. In danger from bandits. In danger from my fellow Jews. In danger from Gentiles. In danger in the city. In danger in the country. In danger at sea. And in danger from false believers. And if that's not enough, I have labored and toiled and often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. And on top of that, I've had to take care of some of my churches. Paul was committed. None of these things deviated from him, from his sense of mission. It's what I called, he was committed. A person, life in mission, is called, is compassionate, and is committed. Doesn't get distracted. And the last thing I want to share, people who have life in mission are courageous. They're courageous.
Amen.
They're courageous like this. What is your name? Ariel. Like Ariel when asked, so are you going to come to a Friday night football game? Hey guys, it's just a football game on high school?
Yes.
It's high school. I've learned that here in Orlando, high school makes it to the Friday evening game. It's very unique. I've never seen that in Miami. But here, maybe for Saturday afternoon they would report, but Friday evening is like big. So when someone asks Ariel, are you going to be with us tonight? She says no. Why? Because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. It takes courage to do that.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
She has what I call a courageous faith. So do you. What is your name? Faith. So does Faith. Faith has a courageous faith. And Travis, the other friend of Ariel, they have a courageous faith. People who have some sort of life and mission are courageous. They're able to simply stay where they are and nobody's going to move them from that. They're courageous. If they see something, if they hear something, and if they feel something, they do something.
Amen.
That's courage. If you see something, what do you hear? What is the cry of the world today? Right now. Are we ready to simply open our Bibles and Revelation and give them the book? And tell them, you better get ready? If you see something, if you hear something, you hear the cry of people, the cry of people are crying. People are getting angry because they don't know how to deal with fear. Well, we're quoting prophecy. That's pretty selfish, isn't it? It's not about quoting prophecy. It's not about explaining prophecy. It's about being compassionate and feeling what God feels for the brokenness of people. A lot remains to be seen. How we are going to deal with last day events. Tony said, oh, this is nothing, right? This is nothing. We can deal with this. This is just a virus that we keep telling ourselves, oh, we can deal with this. We'll be all right. But there are deeper issues that human beings will have to deal with, and that we will have to deal with. So what do we see? What do we hear? And what do we feel in the world today? What do we do? People, life in mission. When they see something, when they hear something, and they feel something, they do something. They don't remain indifferent. I don't know if I have said to you in the past that the opposite of love is not hate. Some say that hate is a distorted way of seeing love. You still take an action to someone through hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Is seeing something, hearing something, feeling something in your gut, and stepping back.
Don't care.
This is part of prophecy. You stand back. And you don't say anything, and you don't do anything. So I'm going to encourage you to live a life in mission. Live a life in mission. Yesterday, I took a day off from work. I worked for Advent Health at the corporate office. And the night before, I had heard President Trump do his thing and how things are evolving here. And a few nights before, something else had evolved, and I said, I took a day off yesterday to reflect. What's my place? You know, I serve as pastor of the corporate office. That's 3,700 employees. That's 3,700, about 3,500, 3,400. We're there in those 3 or 4 or 5 buildings. More or less like 11 buildings. How do we deal with that? So I took off yesterday. I spent most of the day reflecting. And I think that's when I changed my mind, what I was going to talk to you about. What's my role? Not what my role as a pastor. What's my role as a human being? What's my role as someone called to be here on this earth and to be salt and light, to be compassionate, to be committed, to be courageous, and not to be deviated or distracted by no matter what comes, but to be focused on people. As you go about living through this journey, in fact, the King James Version says, through this journey, as we journey through this, may we be people in mission, called, compassionate, committed, and courageous. God bless you.
Amen. Amen.
We're just thankful to Pastor Torres for coming by this morning and sharing with us, helping us to understand our role here in life. We ought to be committed and compassionate to others. We ought to see the need of people rather than seeing our own self-righteousness. Let us be open to the needs of individuals around us.
Amen.
May the Lord bless us and keep us as we continue to serve in His vineyard in whatsoever capacity He calls us to. Let us stand as we sing our song number 373.